beside it. And then to the right of that, you'll see a balloon that is like a cartoon with on some other tour. You know that. Clay, I'm going to let you just take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Leslie. Appreciate that. My name is Clay. I have been with Sun Tours now for 30 years. Of my 32 years as a tour guide, I was hired in 1990 by Sun Tours. So I've been able to travel and go to a lot of great places. And I just want to welcome everybody to this presentation. I know by you being behind your computer that you're being safe. Know that I'm being safe over here, and my family and my household is well, and we're going to stay that way. I wanted to say, first of all, is that I look at every tour as being special. Now, yeah, but there's some that are more special than others. Let me put it that way. Um, I treat every tour as if it is special, but there are a couple of tours that I really think are really, really top notch. And this one has grown out of many, many national park tours that we have gone up to do, the Grand Tetons, and also into the Yellowstone. And we've done ones that were 10, 12 days driving. We've done ones that we flew to Salt Lake City, and then we drove up from there, going in from West Yellowstone. So there's a lot of different ways we've done it. When Sun Tours, and I really want to applaud the people in the office for putting this together, when they came up with this particular variety, this instantly became my favorite. And why did it become my favorite? Well, that is because I didn't have to spend nearly as much time in a motor coach getting there, getting back. Well, that's half the fun. I will admit, we always have a nice time on a bus trip. But by the fact that we fly from Albuquerque directly to Jackson, and if all of you now are looking at this map, which we're going to keep here for just a minute, this little map right here, as you can see, is mostly Wyoming. All right, little bit of Idaho, little bit of Montana. As you can see, that Yellowstone stretches up into that. But we go into Jackson, and you can see we leave out of Cody to come back to Albuquerque. So if you look at that, we are in the national parks 99% of the time. No traveling to get there, no out of the parks. This is pinpoint everything. And because of that, we're able to do everything. We're just going to be doing that. That's going to be our focus on the whole thing. So having said that, that's why this particular one is the one that you want to go on. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the next slide of day one. I hope you recognize that. That is where I left my biplane on my last trip to the airport. Of course, that is Albuquerque International Airport, the most beautiful airport around, of course. And that's where we will start. And we're going to head to next. We're going to head to Jackson, Wyoming. Now, we had a really fun time putting our pictures together with this. And as Jen was getting the pictures put together, she found this picture and it says, "Welcome to Jackson, Wyoming." Now, I will tell you that is not me leaning against the sign. We don't know who that young fellow is. We don't care who that is, but we like the picture. And if you look over his shoulder, you will see the ski area right there in Jackson. So that's the ski area right there. You can see the runs. The ski area comes right down into the city of Jackson. And I want to take a moment right now just to clarify one thing, because this has come up many times, including when we were putting this together yesterday. The town that we're going to be staying in is called Jackson. It is not called Jackson Hole. No matter what the t-shirt says, it is not the town of Jackson Hole. It is named for a guy named Davy Jackson. Now, Jackson, the town of Jackson, is in Jackson Hole. Uh-oh, we're getting confused at this point. I can see by your faces. Not all of your faces, of course. But a hole is where a trapper would work. And in this case, Davy Jackson, in the early 1800s, this was the area that he worked to get pelts. Now, what they were trying to get were beaver pelts, and of course, other animals as well, because that was the fashion of the time, that men and ladies' hats were made out of animal fur. In 1840, that changed, and silk became the preferred material for hats. So a lot of this kind of went out. But Davy, Mr. Jackson, worked this area. And if you worked that area and you were a mountain man, the area that nobody else would encroach upon was yours. And it was called a hole. Uh-huh. So welcome to Davy Jackson's hole. Now what a hole is, in this case, is a valley, a nice long valley, surrounded by mountains. So to the west of the hole, we have the Grand Tetons. And to the east of the hole, we have the Gros Ventre. Gros Ventre. Both of them are French, Teton and Gros Ventre. Okay? So this is where Davy worked in the Jackson Hole area. Okay? So it's the town of Jackson. We got that settled. One of my pet peeves. Let's move on. So the town of Jackson is really cool. It's one of those towns, it's a tourist town, but it has lots of nice history. It has lots of culture. It has fun things to do. And one of the things that on the four corners of what we would call the plaza here in New Mexico, we have these antler arches. Okay. So these are from the elk, and the elk, and I'm going to show you just a little bit where that reserve is. We have a picture of that. But these are collected by Boy Scouts, okay, up from the elk reserve, which is in Jackson Hole, just a few miles above the town of Jackson. And the Boy Scouts sell per pound to the city, and then the city makes these beautiful arches here. So when you're in the town, it's absolutely beautiful. And notice here that on a moose antler, it says Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I love it. That's okay. So does the t-shirt. All right, let's move on. See what else we got here. So as you can see, it's a large plaza area. It's grassy. It has lots of trees. It is surrounded by all these shops, businesses, restaurants, microbreweries, lots of benches to sit around. So very much like our Spanish Plaza, this would be a town square. So this is the town square of Jackson. I do want to point out that our hotel that we stay in the town of Jackson, is 1 block from this square. So I really love the convenience. There's lots of things on the street where we stay. There's places to eat and shop, whatever. But one of the streets from our hotel goes directly down onto this square. So you have super easy access. I would say a 2 to 3 minute walk. That's if you are window shopping along the way. So beautiful, beautiful area, outdoor space there in the town of Jackson. Our hotel is the Antler Motel. And like I said, this is 1 block away. So if you look on the right-hand bottom corner where it says Antler Motel, it's sort of a log cabin kind of a look. You can see by the rooms it has that too. So it has a very rustic look. This is Pearl Street. So the front of this building would be looking down in towards the square or the plaza area, if you will. Behind it to the right would be the ski area that we saw in the original picture with the town of Jackson's name on it. So you can see the rooms, very tidy, very nice, has sort of that rustic, outdoor cowboy, Jackson Hole kind of a vibe to it, which is what everybody goes there for. They go there for the outdoors. People that are going to Jackson, only one reason that you're going to Jackson is you're going to the Tetons, or you're going up into Yellowstone, or unless you're Harrison Ford because he lives there. So we made our way up there that first day. We had a little bit of free time, and we checked in our hotel. You're gonna have free time that evening. We're going to explore a little bit, and then the next morning we're gonna have breakfast. And after breakfast, we're gonna go up to this beautiful, beautiful museum And this is the National Museum of Wildlife Art. And let's start with the top left picture. You can see some more modern type art in there, but if you look to the one to the right on that, you can see Native American art, uh, and also a lot of natural art, birds, animals, terrific. So on the bottom right-hand side, you see our elk, or as they're called up there, wapiti, wapiti. So there's a beautiful statue outside there, inside and out. I don't remember how many galleries are actually there, but it takes about a good hour to go through there. And they have a beautiful gift shop as well. And if you look on the bottom left-hand side of our picture, what looks like a group of bison running by, or buffalo if you prefer, it's the same thing. That is actually a sculpture that is looking out from where we are. The vantage point is looking into Jackson Hole. Ah, I get it. It's a valley. That's all it is, Clay. It's a valley. I'm up on one side. I'm looking across the way. And the mountains across the way are called the Gros Ventre. Gros Ventre, which those of you that speak French means fat belly. Those are the Gros Ventre Mountains. And in that area, right down below where those buffalo statues are, that is the elk reserve. And each winter, the elk come down from the north and they get in that beautiful area right up there, which is acres and acres and acres. I don't know how many square miles it is. And you'll see the entrance of that. And they can get anywhere between 7,500 and 9,000 elk that come down. And why do they come down there? Because the people of this part of Wyoming feed the elk. So the elk don't have to go any further. They just go out there. It's like a bed and breakfast for them. And they do sleigh rides in the wintertime. You go out there and you're with thousands and thousands of elk. And that's also where the Boy Scouts pick up all the antlers. So what you're looking down into is Jackson Hole. There's the hole. There's the valley. So this is a beautiful, beautiful museum, and we will start off our day as we are heading north from the town of Jackson up into Jackson Hole. This will be our first stop, and as you can see, it's going to be great. So now we are in Jackson Hole looking at the Tetons. There are multiple rivers. There are multiple lakes everywhere else along and through there. And there's lots of these old farmhouses. Now, we know that there have been people in this area for tens of thousands of years. And a lot of native peoples have come through these areas, both here and in Yellowstone. We've had the Crow, the Bannock, the Shoshone, the Nez Perce. We've had the Sioux all come through this particular area. And the first people that came to this area that were settlers were Mormon settlers. Okay. Can we go back to that other picture real fast, Frank? There we go. So when you see an old barn like this, the valley itself was settled by the Mormons. And then in the 1920s, especially, it sort of became a big patchwork. John D. Rockefeller came out and he said, you know, this is too beautiful for everybody to sort of spoil the whole thing. And he bought thousands and thousands of acres. Of course, he upset a whole lot of the ranchers out there, but he ended up giving that to the National Park System, which ended up creating this whole beautiful area. The main mountain that you see the three peaks right in front of you on the one on the right-hand side. Okay, you can see part of that on the left-hand side. These are called Les Trois Tetons, and they are the Grand Tetons. They were named by French fur trappers, who I have to only imagine were extremely, extremely lonely and had a great imagination. Now, if you don't speak French, you'll have to look it up yourself, or you'll have to come onto this tour, and I will explain to you what Les Trois Tetons means. But the one in the middle right there, big one right there, is 13,770 feet high. That is your highest peak in there. And you can see they are heavily glaciated. All right. We had glaciers thousands and tens of thousands of years ago, come through this area. They were up to 3,500 feet thick. And this is what carved these beautiful, beautiful mountains. Now, we do a lot of geology. I don't want to get into a whole lot of geology with this right now, but you can see on either side of the main Teton right there, those hanging glaciers that are actually still there and are actually still making the mountains as they are right now. The really neat thing about that is on the top of the mountains, you're going to find the oldest rocks that we have that are visible on the face of the earth. The really old rocks called schists or gneiss, those rocks have come up and been pushed up. So let's go to our next one. I love this next picture. I actually tried to paint this one time, and if you ever watch Bob Ross on TV, I think Bob would do a great job with this. This is a far-off picture from the Gros side, looking west and sunset at the Tetons, as you can see. The river that you see that goes through there is called the Snake River. Now, these mountains, they trend north and south, and they go about 65, 70 miles. They're about 40 miles across, and they're basically a fault. One of the things that happened when a couple of these plates collided is the mountains got pushed up on the west-hand side, and the valley dropped. The valley that we call Jackson Hole dropped. So you have these mountains go up, oldest rocks that we have on top of that, along with some other sediment as well. But a beautiful, beautiful picture. You can also see a lot of trees. We have a lot of pine trees. It's just, I mean, it's so beautiful, just so beautiful. All right, let's continue on, if we would, please. The Meaners Ferry historic area with the Grand Tetons. Let's go on the left-hand side, the Chapel of the Transfiguration. We go into that, and without really giving it away, I will tell you that that has, of any church, even your church, or any churches you've been in Europe or South America or wherever it happened to be, has the most beautiful altar in the world. And I'll put money on it right now. But this is actually owned by an Episcopal church in Jackson, and it is open to everybody to go in. And so we always stop here. This is a historic district in what is called the Moose Junction area. The building on the right belonged to a fellow by the name of William Meaner. His name was Bill Meaner. He had a brother by the name of Holiday, which I have a brother named Richard. And so I always feel like I want my brother to change his name because it'd be great to have a brother named Holiday. Well, Bill and Holiday did pretty good for a lot of years. They built the first raft that went across, the ferry that went across the Snake River. At this point in time, most people lived on the east side of the river, in other words, on the Teton side of the river, and it was very difficult to get across. So they built a ferry. And unfortunately, after many, many years, Bill and Holiday had a falling out, and Holiday went on the west side, Bill stayed on the east side, and they would look at each other across the river, and they would never even speak to each other the rest of their lives. But this was their store right there. Now, what's important about this particular area, there are a couple of other buildings which are not on these slides here, but there is a house called the Maud Noble House, Maud Noble. And in the 1920s, when Rockefeller was buying up this land, he was in cahoots with all these people and the superintendent of Yellowstone to make this a national park. So there is a little building there where Grand Teton National Park was actually conceived by Maud Noble and her friends there. So we'll be able to go in that building as well, and also in the transportation shed. So there's like 4 buildings there in what is called the Meaners Ferry, that's M-E-N-O-R, Meaners Ferry Historic District, which is right near Moose Junction. And this will be, on the first day that we're going into the Grand Teton. So we're going to be staying in this park. And let's go to the next slide if we could. Okay, this is the visitor center at Moose Junction. I see a moose there on the right-hand side. And this is one of the newest visitor centers in the national park, all of the national parks, actually. They have a wonderful film there. They have they have a great bookstore and gift shop, and they have rangers in there. And this is, of course, we'll go in through there and spend a little bit of time. Again, this is just back across the river from Meaners Ferry. And there's a wonderful slide coming up next. Of the outside, you can tell this is a very new building. Now, without me telling you what it looks like, and I know I can't hear you, but what does it look like to you? You got 5 seconds. Well, the architects were trying to make that look like the Grand Tetons. So if you look at the ridge of the roof, it kind of looks like the Grand Tetons, all these spiky kind of mountains going over to there. And then the glass would be the ice reflecting as well. So very super modern, like I said, one of the very newest of all of the visitor centers in our national parks. Right across the street from that is a place called Dornan's. Now they've been there for many, many years, actually I don't know how many generations. But Dornan's in the Moose Junction area has become our go-to place for lunch. So when we get up in the morning, we're gonna have our breakfast course, we're gonna go to that first museum, and then we're gonna go up into the Teton area and take some pictures. We're gonna go to the Meaners Ferry area, we're gonna go to the visitor center. And by the time we get all that done, it'll be about lunchtime. So we're going to over to Dornan's, and they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They've got a great pizza place there. They've got a little deli inside. And certain parts of the year, they do an outdoor cookout. So if we go to the next slide, I think it shows some people. Yeah, outdoor. You can sit outdoors. There's a little chuck wagon back there. And of course, the teepee. And for those of you that have never had lunch in a teepee, it's your opportunity. So it's a lot of fun, and that's at Dornan's. Now, we do Dornan's for lunch because now we're gonna go rafting. So we meet our rafting company back at the visitor center in the parking lot there, and they take the people that have decided to go rafting. Now, if I'm not mistaken, rafting is an optional event on this, so let me explain what happens for everybody if you're not going to go rafting. A lot of our people like to go rafting. As you see, it's a pretty mellow thing. I would call it a float trip. It is not whitewater rafting. You're not going to go out of the boat unless you choose to yourself, because you're so overcome by the awesome scenery and the animals you might be seeing that you decide to come out of the boat. But otherwise, it's perfectly safe, and you can see. The only thing we always tell you is wear a hat, put on some sunblock, that sort of thing, as you can see right through there. And in the background, as you're going down the Snake River, by the way, the Snake River clearly dissects Jackson Hole. All right, so this long valley that we have the river coming from the north, coming all the way down through Jackson Hole, down in the town of Jackson, and then out towards Idaho, where it goes on up and goes into the Columbia River, up into Oregon, Washington area, and then out to the Pacific. So this water that you're seeing is actually headed for the Pacific via the Snake River, up into the Columbia, and then out at Astoria. So as you see, it's pretty nice. Now, as you're looking at that picture, you do have a guide. You have a boatman on the back there. These guys know every inch of the place. They know where the nests are. We often see eagles. We have seen moose. We have seen all kinds of animals. Moose Junction, I want to kind of get back to that idea for a second. I have seen moose there many, many times. And so it is not misnamed at all. Now, if you are not rafting, we will take you back into the town of Jackson for a free afternoon. Now, this may be your free afternoon. It may not be your free afternoon. It's your choice. I actually have never been in this card game, and I can't tell you actually where it takes place, but I think some funny person at some tours thought you'd enjoy seeing that. But that is in a shop somewhere in the town of Jackson. And my dad told me years ago, never play poker with raccoons. So you'll have time in the afternoon to spend a little bit, because the day before, we're just there in the late afternoon. You're gonna have dinner, you can walk around, it's gonna be beautiful. But for those of you that want a little more time for shopping and don't want to go rafting, this is your afternoon. By the way, people that go rafting you'll be back in town a little bit later so you can go shopping and looking around as well. So you'll have two opportunities that afternoon. You go rafting or you come back in town and you go shopping. All right. This is what the town looks like. Very pretty, lots of flowers around, very clean, wooden walkways. This is around the plaza. All right, next, please. And there you go. Look at the whole, shops everywhere. I mean, it is a tourist town, but it is beautiful because it's surrounded by all this beauty, all this lovely nature. But it's a lot of fun. The old Teton Theater is now a pizza parlor, one of the fun places to go eat. Next, please. Or one of the things that people like to do is, if you don't take a stagecoach ride, look behind it. It says the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. You got to go in there, even if you're not going to drink or you're not going to go in and start a fight. You're going to go into the $1 Million Cowboy Bar and you're going to take a look at it because it's wild. And you can go up to the bar and actually sit on a saddle and have your iced tea. It's pretty fun. Good stuff. All right, next, please. On to day 3. More of the Tetons, as you can see. I like this picture because you see the clouds. Those are not low clouds. Those are very high mountains. And again, this might be an old Mormon farm that might be there as well. So let's continue. All right, that's a nice wide view. You're looking in Jackson Hole towards the Tetons right there. And we'll continue on here, please. All right, now I want to explain something to you. You see these really deep canyons that are here above the lake in the mountains. Okay, so look up on the left-hand side going up from the lake. This is Jenny Lake, by the way, and we're going to go to Jenny Lake. There's a beautiful viewpoint. But this is a glacial moraine lake. In other words, all that material that got pushed up out of the mountains by the glaciers got deposited on, let's call it the left-hand side of the lake. On the picture as we look at it, the left-hand side of the lake is a natural dam made up of the earth that was moved by the glaciers. When the glaciers receded, it left a natural dam. So when the waters melt from the snow and the rain, they come and they fill these glacial moraine lakes. And this is one of the most beautiful ones. And it is Jenny Lake, who was named for a Shoshone woman. And it's a wonderful story. You'll have to go on the tour to hear. Our next picture is of Lake Jackson. So you still see the Tetons, but now we're pretty far up in the Tetons, almost to Yellowstone, if you will. Okay. So we've got this beautiful, again, glacial moraine lake. And this Snake River, which we've talked about and we've seen, is coming out of this beautiful lake right here. So we'll stop and take a lovely picture. In fact, this may be one of our picture stops right here. And the next picture is going to show where we're going to stop, one of our stops, just as a restroom stop. And this is the lodge at Jackson Lake. Now, on the left-hand side, those windows, people just love to sit there and look out at the mountains. In fact, the one mountain in the middle is called Mount Moran. It was named for Thomas Moran, the famous painter who came into this area with the Hayden expedition in the late 1800s. And on the right-hand side, you see people out there doing what they do best, just sort of relaxing, looking out at the Tetons. And when I'm out at this spot, I always look out into that foliage that's there because I have many times found moose in that particular area. I'm not sure if the hotel pays them to show up or not, but a lot of times we see moose. But it's a lovely old lodge, and we will stop there for about 40-45 minutes. And they have a nice cappuccino stand. Now, let's look at this. Going up into Yellowstone now on this day. Yellowstone is 2 large loops, and let's look at the very, very bottom. There is a red road going up. To identify that road, you can see a little bit halfway up that little road, it says Grant Village. All right. So if you follow this road up, we're going to go to the left now, and we're going to go towards where it says Old Faithful. Now, before we go to the next screen, which is Old Faithful, I believe, I just want you to know that we're going to go up and to the left, which is on the west-hand side, over to Old Faithful, and then we're going to go up, keep going up, and then we're going to circle around to the right until we come over to where it says Canyon Village, which is about maybe an inch below the top of your map at this point. That's where we're going to be staying. Yellowstone is 2 big loops, so there's no straight way to do Yellowstone, so we loop. We do, and I'll tell you how we're going to do that. But this first part, coming up the bottom of the south, coming around over to Canyon. All right, next, please. So we have to stop at Old Faithful. Have to do that, and it's in the Upper Geyser Basin. And so we have the Old Faithful Geyser Basin there. We have the Porcelain Basin. We have the Black Sand Basin. And we want to go in this beautiful building here, which fortunately was saved during the fire of 1988. And you'll be able to explore there. They also do tours. They do architectural tours. And if you're lucky enough to get a reservation for lunch, or there's a spot, you can go in and have lunch there. There are multiple places. So we will be spending lunch plus hours there, because I will offer a walk through the Geyser Basin. Not only to see Old Faithful, we should be there enough times for you to see Old Faithful at least 2 to 3 times, at least. And speaking of which, Old Faithful is what people always want to see. There are bigger and higher and noisier geysers that are in the geyser basins, but everybody wants to go see Old Faithful, of course, and you can go out there with all the thousands of people and watch it go off. And yes, it does go off about every hour to hour and 15 minutes. It's going off right now. How about that? My buddy Earl has his Yellowstone cam set up on his computer, so he watches Old Faithful go off every day. All right, that's great. There are other little geysers that are around in here, and they form these formations, what we call geyserites. And so this would be in the valley that we would walk around. I'm not sure which one this one is exactly, but it's one of the ones that's in that geyser basin. Okay, now this is remarkable. This is on the photo, of course, where we're advertising this tour. And this is Grand Prismatic. This is in the Midway Geyser Basin. It is the most colorful of these hot springs. And there are thermophiles there and other little microorganisms that make these different colors depending on the heat. And of course, you have the reflection of the sky as well into the water. So it's a great place. You can see people on a walkway coming up and going around. And it's really something to see. It's really beautiful. I want to make a point. That is what we call a hot spring. And I will make a point that every hydrothermal activity in Yellowstone is a hot spring. Whether it's a fumarole, or it's a mud pot, or it's a geyser, they are all hot springs. They each are different because of how much water is involved in that particular area to make the hot spring. Make it a mud pot if it doesn't have too much, make it a fumarole if it has hardly any water at all, or of course these hot springs is usually where the geysers come out of. Anyway, let's go to the next one, because this is where we're going to stay tonight. This is over in Canyon Lodge. Canyon Lodge in the park there. The picture that you see, beds are beds, but if you look on the right-hand side where it says Canyon Lodge, this is actually a horseshoe-shaped formation. Straight across from this is a visitor center. On the other leg over there, there are camping stores, there's multiple restaurants, shops, outfitters, all that sort of thing that are right there at Canyon Lodge. So it's a wonderful place, and it's really close to the Canyon of the Yellowstone. Day 4, as we're moving right along here, is the upper loop. Okay, so again, this is not the same picture that you were looking at before. So there we are, right about the middle, on the lower part on the middle, right there, right? And it says Canyon Village, all right? So now we're going to take the loop to the left. We're going to go back to the left to the Norris Geyser Basin. We're going to go straight up all the way to where it says Mammoth Hot Springs, where we're going to have our lunch. And watch out, there's elk everywhere there. You have to watch where you go. They have the right of way, okay? And then we're going to go to the right and loop around to Tower Roosevelt area. We're going to stop at Tower Falls. And then we're going to come back along Dunraven Pass as we head south or down through there, heading to our hotel for the night. So this is the upper loop. We're going to do the upper loop this whole day. All right, next picture, please. This is part of the Norris Geyser Basin. The Norris Geyser Basin is the hottest part of the park. Okay, when we're talking about hottest parts, you probably realize that these are super volcanoes without going into too much geology. The geologists estimate 100 to 200 square miles of lava and magma was shot out. And this whole caldera, which is about 30 by 40 miles wide, was created. And there are many, many hot spots that are in this particular park. And in fact, this is as close as you're going to get to the heat of the Earth. And so Norris is one of the hottest. This particular area of Norris is called the Porcelain Basin. And as you see, in all the places we go, the Park Service has provided these wonderful walkways. By the way, you will hear me say this many times, stay on the walkways, because you could step right off. You could actually step through a crust of the Earth and get into a hot spring. So that's Norris. As we drive north, these are the Sheep Eater Cliffs. There's a lot of volcanic activity, as we talked about a minute ago. In fact, there are 2 supervolcanoes that are in Yellowstone. We'll talk about that yellow one in a minute. This is basalt. There's a lot of basalt. There's a lot of rhyolite. These are called the Sheep Eater Cliffs. The Sheep Eaters were Shoshone. They were the only native peoples who lived full year round in the park. Everybody else wouldn't go into the park because it was just way too superstitious. They were afraid of all these things. In fact, if you remember Lewis and Clark, John Coulter, he doesn't go back east with Lewis and Clark. He goes down in through this area, makes his way all the way down through Yellowstone into the Grand Tetons, and he calls it Coulter's Hell. That's what this was called. So it was a very scary place, lots of activity, but the only people that had lived in there, so the Sioux wouldn't come in, they would only come in to hunt, right? The Crow, the Bannock, they would only come in to hunt, but the Shoshone sheep eaters would stay there. And one of the reasons they say that they did is because they were not warriors and other people left them alone, and they also hunted the bighorn sheep. So these are Sheep Eater Cliffs. Now we make our way up to Mammoth. These are travertine terraces, and the geometry of these are really interesting. As you can see, this is limestone that has been dissolved by the hot acidic waters, making these beautiful terraces. As you can see, a couple there. When the water supply moves, the terrace actually sort of dies, but it keeps its color. So you'll see both the ones that I call dead and the ones that have water in them. So this is all up in Mammoth, and that is where we'll have lunch that day and look at the elk, and there's also a visitor center. On our way around the map, as we're starting to head to the east and then down, this is called Tower Falls. Old picture on the left, which I looked at, I couldn't figure out, but if you look at it carefully, it was framed in sort of some weird, oval kind of frame kind of a thing. So the formation actually doesn't look like that. It looks like an elephant. But there's the falls now they look today. So we'll stop at Tower Falls and take a look there too. Okay. People come to Yellowstone for the animals. Now, we do see a lot of animals. I cannot promise you animals. If I did, I don't know what I could do on that. But the bighorn sheep on the left-hand side, rare to see them. Very, very rare to see them. Below that, the moose. The moose is very reclusive. Very reclusive. Now, I've seen moose many, many times, but I'm very fortunate. I have been to Yellowstone over 30 times. I first went to Yellowstone 40 years ago. I took my father, after he took me on many, many vacations, I took my father on a trip, and we actually walked up on a moose. I've walked up on a moose twice in all these years, in 40 years. You see more elk there down below as we go to the right, and then you see a nice bear. We like to see bears, and we do often see bears. Last time I saw 2 grizzly cubs that were playing on a long log, which was pretty cool. I like that. You don't want to mess with them because mama's around, and she's usually not too happy about people being around. They do have black bear, and they do have grizzly bear. Grizzly bears are bigger. They have that hump you know, right behind their ears there, and they have a bit of a shovel face to them. And they can be many different colors. A black bear can also be cinnamon or brown. To the right of that is the wolf. Wolves were almost extinct. Very controversial. Many wolves were introduced in the 1970s back in there, and they seem to be doing well in the Lamar Valley. Up above is the great American bison. We call them buffalo, but they are really great American bison, and I guarantee you we will see lots. So probably mostly elk and mostly bison. And what we do is we look for what we call jams. And if there's cars on the side of the road, they're probably stopped looking at something. So we pull over our motor coach and we join in the jam. It could be a bear jam, could be a wolf jam, it could be a moose jam. We find out and then we take a look. All right, next, please. Okay, this is Dunraven Pass. Those are the Absaroka Mountains as we are now heading down south along back towards the falls. Beautiful area, as you see. Next, please. These are the lower falls. Now, the lower falls are higher than the upper falls. Don't be confused. Upper falls are just over 100 feet high. These are 308 feet high. These are the lower falls. This is the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. You wonder why it's called Yellowstone? Look at the rocks. It's yellow. This is the upper falls. By the way, the French fur trappers who named Yellowstone, the Roche Jean, the Yellowstone. And then the Sioux called it the Midzi Adadzi of the Yellowstone. This is the upper falls of the Yellowstone River. So this is above the other picture we just saw. Frank, could you go back to the other picture real fast? We'll kind of A-B this. That's the lower falls, okay, which are higher. Now we'll go to the next picture. There's the upper falls. You'll be able to see both of them. I'll make 2 stops. We'll be able to get vantage point for both of those. All right. All right, so here's our little map again, and we're basically at Canyon Village. So there on the top part of your map. Now we're coming down through Hayden Valley. We're heading down towards Grant Village, which is at the bottom. So that will complete our complete circles, our 2 complete circles, and we're going to go along Yellowstone Lake. All right, Frank. All right, this is one of our beautiful hot springs along the way. Not sure exactly which one this is. I think this is Biscuit Basin. But you can see all the beautiful colors along the side, the algae, the thermophiles, the reflections, and of course the heat rising. Thank you. Oh, this is a bubbling mud pot. These are the ones that stink and make lots of noise and are very terrifying, to be honest with you. This is where we stay tonight. And this is down what we call Grant Village. Very lovely little spot to stay. Now, on the next day, we're gonna go back along the lake. You can see the lake behind this this is West Thumb area. And look how deep that particular hot spring is. And it probably bubbles and it's nice and warm. Because we're gonna go up to this area. This is called the Lake Hotel. About a turn of the century hotel, same architect who was there to do some renovations on Old Faithful Lodge or Inn. And this is a beautiful yellow hotel, which you can't really tell right here, but in this porch, you're looking out onto Lake Yellowstone, which, by the way, is the second super volcano, the second cauldron that is within the park. This is Fishing Bridge, and I don't know if those people are fishing or they're just looking over, but this is the bridge that takes us to the east and eventually into Cody, Wyoming. And we get to Cody and we get to go to Buffalo Bill's Irma Hotel for our lunch. Irma, by the way, was his daughter. And after a fabulous lunch, we're going to go up to the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. And there he is out there. This is a tremendous Western museum. When I first went in here, I had no idea what I was getting into. So we make sure that we give you plenty of time here, because if you look at the next slide, it has lots of pictures of the galleries. So we've got everything with wagons and Native American art. We've got a whole thing on the bottom left about Buffalo Bill. Of course, the wildlife to the right. And whether you're a gun collector or not, it has one of the most amazing gun collections I have ever laid my eyes on. And so there's lots to do in there. It takes a couple hours to go through this, and it has beautiful views out the window. And this is all in Cody, Wyoming, which is just barely outside. If you remember our very first map, it's barely outside of the park. And it's a beautiful drive from the park over to Cody. We stay here at the Cody Inn. Looks nice. And right across the street, we're going to go across and we're going to have a cowboy cookout, sing along. And you can see, there we go, fiddlers, guitar players. I think there's children in the next one here, but we have a wonderful, wonderful meal. And these are usually run by families, and then they give you way too much to eat. And of course, your brownie and your lemonade just to keep your sugar up. And then, by the way, this is right across the street from our hotel. Day 6, we're ready. We get a little bit of leisure morning. We go over to the airport there in Cody, and we come back to the place we love, New Mexico. Hey, I want to thank you for your attention, and I hope you learned something about Grand Tetons and Yellowstone, and I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clay. Thank you so much. We have a
Welcome.
few places on this tour, so it's going to be first come, first serve. We will take a waiting list because we think there might be some people who make a different decision as things progress, but be sure that you know that this is a tour that flies from Albuquerque to Jackson and then back from Cody to Albuquerque, so that you're not spending many, many days on your motor coach to get to the state parks that are so gorgeous that Clay just showed us. You will, of course, have motor coach tours once you arrive in Jackson throughout the park. You've got 5 nights of lodging at those lovely looking hotels, 3 breakfasts, 1 lunch, 1 dinner, the admission to all the listed attractions, and your professional Sun Tours tour director, Clay Bernard, who you just met and know now how knowledgeable he is about this area. This is all for $2,535 double occupancy per person. And we have an extended final payment date of July 7th. So make your deposit now, and you have until July 7th to make your final decision. We want to bring your attention to just a few of our other tours that are traveling this fall. We have Niagara Falls with Mackinac Island that departs on August 13th. That's another great tour, and Mackinac Island is just an exquisite opportunity. $2,845 double occupancy per person. We do still have a few seats on that. We've got the Black Hills. Ned O'Malia, one of our other tour directors, very knowledgeable, and he's going to take you to see Mount Rushmore and the Crazy Horse Monument and the Wall Drugstore, where they serve free ice water. So don't miss that for just $1,645 double occupancy per person. Then later in the year, we've got the Colorado Aspen Color. Leaves Albuquerque October 13th. It's a driving trip up to see the golden, beautiful leaves of the autumn in the gorgeous Colorado Rockies. And that will also include the Maroon Bells Lake, one of the most photographed areas in the world, and it's $1,095 double occupancy per person. And we're very excited about our upcoming New York. It's a holiday town. It's a brand new tour for us. It's going to be a Christmas celebration of New York, leaves December 13th. You'll get a chance to see 2 live Broadway shows, one of which is the Radio City Music Hall show, and you'll have an option to purchase tickets for Hamilton. So if you are a big fan of the big city, then you might want to join us for that tour departing December 13th. Please visit us online or call us if you have any questions. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to hear what you're waiting for, and we want to see you traveling with us soon.